She was supposed to be walking a runway in Atlanta that weekend. Instead, she was lying on a cold sidewalk, her white dress soaked in blood, her phone still clutched in her hand, one final text never sent. The bullet that killed her came from a man she barely knew. A man who claimed to admire her, but couldn't handle rejection. Witnesses said they saw the man pull up in a black Range Rover outside the boutique opening. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. He waited, watched her, then fired. And then, like the city didn't just lose another daughter, he simply drove away. Why would a wealthy, respected man do something so violent? And what made this young model a threat to him? That's the part no one was prepared for. This is the story of Nia Caldwell. 22. But and dead because she told a man no. But to understand why she was killed in public, in broad daylight, you have to go back a few weeks. To the night everything changed. If you're watching this and you believe women should be able to say no and walk away alive, we want you here. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe now so you never miss a story like this again. Nia Caldwell had what people call a God glow. Everyone noticed it. Her eyes didn't just look at you, they looked into you. She had long brown legs, cheekbones made for the camera, and the kind of smile you could hear before you saw it. She walked like she was already famous. But fame wasn't what she was chasing. She wanted respect. Raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, Nia grew up in a home that didn't have much, but it had love. Her mom, Teresa, was a high school teacher who worked nights at the local library. Her dad wasn't in the picture. He left when Nia was 6, but Teresa filled the silence with books, documentaries, and little handwritten notes in Nia's lunchbox that always ended with, "Be more than pretty, baby. Be powerful." Nia believed her. That's why she worked 2 jobs, modeling part-time and managing a clothing store just to pay her own way. She didn't want to depend on anyone, not even when agents told her she had a face worth 6 figures. That independence, that confidence, it attracted attention. And not all of it was good. She met him at a charity gala. She wasn't even supposed to be there. Her friend Myra had begged her to tag along, promising her it would be low-key networking. But when they walked into the hotel ballroom, it was anything but low-key. It was luxury, old money, politicians, NFL wives, and him, Marcus Langston. At 41, Marcus had made his millions in real estate. On the outside, he was a philanthropist, someone who gave back to black communities in Atlanta, opening youth centers and sponsoring scholarships. But on the inside, people whispered about women, about power, about how he didn't like being told no. Nia said he introduced himself with a smile and a drink she didn't ask for. She tried to be polite, but he kept inching closer. By the end of the night, he had cornered her twice. First near the dessert table, then near the restroom. His questions were strange. Who do you go home to? You got a man who lets you dress like that? I like fire. You got fire. Nia texted Myra that she wanted to leave early. She told her, "Dude giving me stalker vibes." They left. She blocked his number the same night. But Marcus wasn't used to women like Nia. Days later, he sent flowers to her job. Then shoes. Then an envelope with photos of her leaving her apartment. Photos no one should have had. Nia didn't smile anymore. She told her boss at the clothing store that someone had been following her. A black SUV always parked near the bus stop when she left work late. She thought she was being paranoid until she wasn't. Then one night, she got a call. She didn't answer, but the voicemail was short. "Nia, I don't chase women, but I don't forget them either." Her hands were shaking when she played it for Myra. She deleted it right after. She didn't want to make it a thing. That's what she said. But by now, it already was. That weekend, Myra begged her to go to the police. Nia agreed, reluctantly. The report was filed. Officer noted the voicemail and the unrequested gifts. But when they asked who Marcus Langston was and ran his name, they exchanged a look. One officer even said, "You sure you want to pursue this? This guy's got friends in high places." That made Nia pause. But it also made her angry. She left the station saying, "So if you've got money, women's lives don't matter?" And she was right to be afraid. Because 2 days later, Nia got a message from a blocked number. No words, just a video, grainy, taken from inside her apartment building lobby. She was walking alone, holding her keys. The camera followed her all the way to the elevator. Nia didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she called her mom and said, "If anything happens to me, check my journal. The red one, top drawer." Teresa told her to stop being dramatic. Nia laughed and said, "I'm serious, Ma. This world ain't fair. But I won't be scared of some man." That was the last full conversation they had. Because just 3 days later, Nia booked a modeling job for a boutique launch in downtown Atlanta. It was supposed to be her big break. The designer had connections to New York Fashion Week. She got her hair done, her makeup, picked out the silk white dress herself, told Myra, "This is my moment." And it was. Until the moment ended with a man pulling a trigger. In front of witnesses. In front of cameras. But here's the twist no one expected. Marcus Langston had an airtight alibi. He wasn't even in the city. So who pulled the trigger? And who ordered it? The news broke before her mother even got the call. Aspiring model shot outside boutique event in Atlanta. That was the headline. No mention of her name. No mention of her smile, or her dreams, or her journal filled with runway sketches and prayers for her future. Just aspiring model. But to the people who knew Nia Caldwell, she wasn't just aspiring. She was becoming. Her mother, Teresa, didn't believe it at first. She saw the news flash on Facebook. Her phone had died overnight, and by the time she charged it, there were 5 missed calls and a voicemail from Myra. She didn't even press play. She just grabbed her coat, grabbed her car keys, and drove 6 hours straight from Charlotte to Atlanta, whispering the whole way, "Please let it be a mistake." But it wasn't. At Grady Memorial Hospital, she was escorted to a room with a nurse who didn't say a word. Just a soft look and a clipboard. There was a form to sign. A body to ID. And the same white dress Teresa had helped Nia pick out folded inside a clear bag. Later, she told a reporter, "I always told her to shine bright. I didn't know how many shadows would be watching." If you're watching this and your heart is breaking like ours did, hit that subscribe button now. Because stories like Nia's are too important to be forgotten. When detectives reviewed the surveillance footage from the boutique's exterior cameras, it was clear. The shooter was male, wearing a black hoodie, black gloves, and a surgical mask. He moved like he knew what he came for. In fact, it looked like he was waiting, positioned perfectly in the shadow of a side pillar, just outside the range of the main security camera. They checked timestamps. The boutique event had started at 6 p.m. Nia arrived at 6:19. She took selfies with a few other models inside, greeted the owner, and then stepped outside briefly to take a phone call. At exactly 6:33, the shooter approached. 2 seconds later, 3 shots were fired. The shooter walked back to the street. Witnesses screamed. One chased him, but the black SUV he jumped into sped off before anyone got a plate number. 3 shots. 1 to the chest, 1 to the neck, 1 to the lower torso. She was dead before the ambulance arrived. At first, police thought it was a robbery. But nothing was taken. Her purse was still on her shoulder. Her phone still in hand. Wallet untouched. Detective Calloway, a 13-year veteran of the Atlanta PD, called the case targeted and premeditated. He said on record, whoever did this knew her. This wasn't random. That statement put Marcus Langston right back in the spotlight. But there was a problem. Marcus was on a private jet to Miami the entire evening. Flight manifest confirmed it. So did airport cameras. His lawyer came forward within 48 hours and issued a statement to the press. Mr. Langston had no involvement in the tragic incident involving Ms. Caldwell. He is cooperating fully with authorities. Still, no one forgot the voicemail, or the envelope of photos, or the video of Nia walking alone in her building. So the question became, if Marcus didn't do it himself, did he send someone? Detectives requested his phone records, but the calls were clean, nothing tied to the time of the murder. His bank accounts? No suspicious transfers. His known associates? All had airtight alibis. But Nia's red journal? That told a different story. When Teresa brought it to police, they were shocked. Nia had logged every interaction with Marcus from the moment she met him. Times, dates, details. She wrote about being followed. She described the SUV. She mentioned a name more than once, Andre M. In one entry she wrote, "Marcus didn't come around today, but I saw Andre near the store. He's always there now. Something about him gives me chills." Police traced the name to Andre Mitchell, a 28-year-old ex-con who once worked as private security for one of Marcus's real estate firms. No current address, no active employment records, but his name came up in 2 unsolved assault cases, both involving women who had filed reports but dropped them suddenly. They ran his name through traffic cams. And there it was. A black SUV registered to a cousin of Andre's was spotted leaving the boutique event area at 6:38 p.m., 5 minutes after the shooting. Detectives were convinced Andre Mitchell was the trigger man. But finding him? That was another story. They knocked on the cousin's door. Empty. Phone disconnected. Socials wiped clean. No trace. Myra, still shaken, came forward and confirmed Nia had mentioned Andre, said he gave her creepy vibes, always outside her job, acting like he was just walking by. It had been building for weeks. Then another break. A tip came in from a gas station employee 2 hours south of Atlanta. A man matching Andre's description had paid in cash, wearing a hoodie, and driving a black SUV with a cracked back taillight. Police reviewed footage and froze on a blurry frame. It wasn't enough to confirm identity, but it was enough to keep going. Meanwhile, the public started demanding answers. Nia's story was everywhere, on TikTok, on Twitter, on morning talk shows. Hashtag Justice for Nia trended for 3 straight days. But what most people didn't know was what the boutique owner said off camera. She told investigators, "There was a man parked outside the shop for an hour before we opened. I thought he was security, but he just sat there, staring at the door." Then, just as police were planning a press conference, they received a flash drive in an unmarked envelope. There was no note, no sender, just one file. A voice recording. "I warned her. I gave her chances. She thought so was cute. But now she knows. You can't embarrass a man like me." It was chilling. It was intentional. But it wasn't Marcus Langston's voice. And it wasn't Andre's either. So who was it? The voice on the flash drive changed everything. It wasn't Marcus. It wasn't Andre. And it wasn't distorted or rushed like someone hiding. It was measured, slow, arrogant. Police ran it through audio matching software, comparing it to everyone connected to the case. Marcus's inner circle, past employees, even suspects from Nia's neighborhood. No match. But they knew one thing for certain. Whoever sent it wasn't afraid. They wanted to be heard. It was a message and a warning. Back at the precinct, Detective Calloway replayed the voice note 6 times, his eyes narrowing with every pass. The phrasing, the entitlement, the ease with which this man referred to Nia's life and death, like it was a business transaction. Still, without a name, there was no arrest. So the department released a snippet of the audio to the public asking for tips. Within 24 hours, 3 different calls came in, each suggesting the voice might belong to Terrence Hill, a wealthy entrepreneur based out of Decatur, Georgia. Now here's the twist. Terrence was Marcus Langston's younger cousin. And unlike Marcus, Terrence wasn't known for real estate. He was known for fixing things, a behind-the-scenes operator in Atlanta nightlife, often mentioned in hushed tones but rarely photographed. He had no criminal record, no tax filings under his name. but he always seemed to have money. Connections. And then Myra came forward again, with something she hadn't told the police the first time. 2 weeks before Nia's death, she and Nia had gone out for dinner after work. At the restaurant, a man in a designer hoodie passed their table, stopped, and said, "Y'all Atlanta girls are real pretty, but some of y'all too mouthy for your own good." Myra said Nia went quiet, stared at her plate. After the man walked away, she whispered, "That's Terrence, Marcus's cousin. He offered me money to get close. I said no." Now everything made sense. But here's where it got darker. Police searched public records for any link between Terrence Hill and the SUV seen leaving the crime scene. No match. But they did find something else. A closed business account linked to a defunct nightclub on the south side of Atlanta. That property had once been owned by Marcus, then transferred to Terrence. There were no recent utility bills, no active business licenses, but security cameras were still installed. They pulled the footage. 1 week before the murder, that black SUV had parked behind the building. Same taillight crack, same bumper dent. A man matching Andre's profile stepped out and went inside. 30 minutes later, Terrence showed up. They stayed inside for 2 hours. That's when the theory turned from stalking to a planned hit. The story began shifting online. People no longer asked, "Who did it?" They asked, "Who ordered it?" It was Marcus Langston's obsession, Andre Mitchell's trigger finger, and Terrence Hill's operation. But none of them were in custody. The public was outraged. Social media erupted. Hashtag Protect Black Women trended alongside hashtag Justice for Nia. Protesters gathered outside Marcus's real estate office. Local news outlets aired Nia's story nightly. Her mother appeared on Good Morning America, holding her daughter's modeling headshot in one hand and the Red Journal in the other. "My baby should have been safe," she said, tears steady. She told everyone. She documented everything. And they still let it happen. Meanwhile, the boutique where Nia had been killed was shut down temporarily. Customers left candles and flowers by the door. Other models started coming forward, sharing stories of being approached by older men with connections. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was a pattern. Then something unexpected happened. A fourth person was arrested, Kyla Banks, a 29-year-old event planner. She wasn't in the journal. She hadn't been mentioned by Myra, but her fingerprint was found on the unmarked flash drive envelope. When questioned, Kyla cracked. She said she didn't know the full plan, only that she had been asked by Terrence Hill to deliver a message to the police if anything happened. She didn't ask what he meant. She didn't want to know. But she was promised $15,000 and a job hookup if she did it quietly. She confessed to mailing the flash drive. With Kyla's cooperation, police now had leverage. They traced cash withdrawals made by Terrence Hill from several burner accounts, each tied to ATM surveillance. One video showed him handing off an envelope to a man outside a barbershop 2 days before the murder. When that man was identified, he turned out to be Andre's cousin, the owner of the SUV. Police finally had enough for an arrest warrant. They raided Terrence Hill's gated property just after 4 a.m. Helicopters overhead. SWAT at the door. Inside, they found cash, surveillance equipment, 2 phones with encrypted messaging apps, and in one drawer, a receipt for a one-way flight to the Cayman Islands dated for the following week. But Terrence wasn't there. He had vanished. Word on the street said he was tipped off. Someone inside law enforcement may have warned him, though no proof of that has surfaced. What we do know is, within 48 hours of the raid, Terrence Hill was officially added to the FBI's most wanted list for conspiracy to commit murder. But the question still lingered. Where was Andre Mitchell, the actual shooter? And even more pressing, why was Marcus Langston so quiet? With Terrence Hill on the run and Andre Mitchell still missing, the case was now national. The FBI stepped in, marshalling interstate support. News outlets from coast to coast were suddenly dissecting the story of a 22-year-old model murdered for rejecting a wealthy man's obsession. But beneath the headlines, one name stayed eerily quiet: Marcus Langston. Though not arrested or officially charged, his role had been central to Nia's life unraveling. He was the first contact. The money, the motive. Yet the man with a public history of philanthropy had vanished from public view. His real estate company released a formal statement calling Nia's murder tragic and denying all involvement. But it was what came next that shifted the case into darker territory. A former assistant to Marcus, a woman named Celeste Monroe, came forward anonymously to a local radio station. Her voice was disguised. Her words were not. "I used to organize his meetings, his dinners, sometimes his gifts. There were always women, always younger. If one said no, someone else stepped in. Not to talk, to intimidate." She spoke about coded language in Marcus's planner, initials with stars beside them, names of women followed by dollar signs. She described how Terrence handled the mess, and how if a woman became too loud, Andre usually made it go away. According to Celeste, Nia wasn't the first woman to raise concerns. But she was the first one who fought back, documenting everything, refusing to disappear. Celeste claimed that 3 months before Nia was killed, another woman named Tia Ransom filed a report against Marcus after being stalked. But days later, she withdrew it. That woman has never spoken publicly. It wasn't just about Nia anymore. It was about the entire pattern of control and cover-up. But something about Celeste's account didn't sit right with Detective Calloway. Her detail, her fear, her timing. So he dug deeper and found out she hadn't worked for Marcus in over a year. So how did she know about Nia? Why now? That's when the anonymous envelope arrived. Again, no return address. Inside were 2 photos. One showed Terrence and Marcus on a yacht, drinks in hand. The other? Andre Mitchell, dressed in security gear, standing outside a luxury condo building. In the corner of the photo, almost blurred, was Nia walking to her car. The timestamp was from 3 months before her murder. It proved surveillance, premeditation, and worst of all, the possibility that Nia had been watched for weeks, if not months, before she ever filed a report. Police reopened old cases. They cross-referenced reports from women who'd filed and dropped stalking complaints. In 3 of those reports, the descriptions of the men matched either Terrence or Andre. Then, the break they needed came not from a raid, but a hospital. In a small town near Savannah, Georgia, a man was admitted with a gunshot wound to the leg. He gave a fake name, said it was a hunting accident. But a nurse recognized his tattoo from news reports, Andre Mitchell. Police were called immediately. By the time they arrived, he had fled. But the room hadn't been cleared. In his backpack, they found prepaid phones. One was still powered on, and in it, a series of texts between him and a number listed only as M. The most recent message read, "I handled it. I won out." No response. Another text came 36 hours later. "No loose ends. You know the rule." Detectives believed M was Marcus Langston, but Marcus's legal team dismissed it, claiming the phone could have been planted and that M was too vague to be linked. They needed more. 2 days later, Andre was spotted again, this time at a bus terminal in South Carolina. He was limping, dirty, on edge. He was arrested without incident. At first, he refused to speak, but the evidence was stacked. The SUV, the photos, the phone, the cash traced to Terrence. Finally, after 48 hours of silence, Andre leaned forward and said, "They said she needed to be quiet. That's all. Just quiet. Not dead." What came next was a confession, one that didn't absolve him, but tore open the truth. He said Marcus Langston had orchestrated everything. That Marcus was furious Nia had filed the report. That Marcus told Terrence to make it disappear. That Terrence offered Andre $50,000. That Andre said yes, and then pulled the trigger. He also said he had been threatened. That once he did the job, he was no longer useful. that Terrence tried to kill him to clean up loose ends. That's how he got shot. With that, police issued a warrant for Marcus Langston's arrest, charging him with conspiracy to commit murder, intimidation of a witness, and unlawful surveillance. But when they arrived at Marcus's mansion, empty, gone, just like Terrence. Once again, the powerful disappeared. But this time, there was no public support. No carefully worded statement. Only outrage. And an online army demanding justice. Nia's mother told reporters, "They may have money, but we have memory. And I will not let my daughter become another headline forgotten." And she meant it, because 3 weeks later, something unexpected showed up at the Atlanta Police Department. A small brown box. No name, no note. Inside was a gold-plated USB drive. When detectives plugged it in, they found a folder labeled Langston Insurance. The USB drive changed everything. Inside the folder labeled Langston Insurance were dozens of audio files, each labeled with a date and time, each capturing private conversations Marcus never intended anyone to hear. The recordings were crystal clear, wire-level quality. Some appeared to have been made in cars, others in hotel rooms, and one inside Marcus's own office. Detectives believed Terrence had recorded them as leverage. Insurance. Because in the kind of business they ran, trust wasn't protection, evidence was. And these files? They were damning. In one clip, Marcus can be heard saying, "She's gonna ruin me. If she keeps talking, I'm finished. You handle it, I don't care how." In another, Terrence responds, "We'll make sure she's forgotten before the month is out." The most chilling file came from a conversation between Marcus and an unknown third man. "We already warned her. That little journal? Cute, but dangerous. You want her scared or gone?" Marcus replied, "Gone." That single word sent a shockwave through the task force. Suddenly, all the theories became confirmed intentions. Nia wasn't collateral. She was the target, because she said no, because she stood her ground, because she wouldn't let herself be silenced. The USB drive also included bank statements showing offshore transfers, Marcus paying Terrence in increments to an account in the Cayman Islands. It showed pictures of women, other possible victims, filed in folders by year. Notes beside their names. Paid. Gone quiet. Watch closely. It wasn't just about Nia anymore. This was systemic. A crime ring of intimidation, coercion, and violence, run by two powerful men who knew exactly how to operate in silence. Public outrage exploded. The mayor of Atlanta released a statement pledging full support to the investigation. The district attorney fast-tracked the case for grand jury review. The FBI doubled down on their hunt for Marcus and Terrence, now officially listed as domestic fugitives. Nia's mother, Teresa, held a candlelight vigil outside the boutique where her daughter was murdered. Over 300 people showed up, models, students, activists, mothers. They held posters with Nia's face. They chanted her name. They demanded justice. And then, someone came forward. A former business partner of Marcus, a man named David Greer, called into the police anonymously first. Then, hours later, walked into the station himself with a lawyer. David claimed he had helped Marcus and Terrence launder money through real estate deals and club promotions. But after Nia's death, he said, "It felt like we crossed a line no one should ever cross." He didn't know where Marcus was now, but he had one clue. A private property in Mexico, purchased under a shell company. Off-grid, no electricity, no running water, no surveillance. But it matched the withdrawal records found in Marcus's Cayman bank files. The FBI launched an immediate operation in collaboration with Mexican authorities. 5 days later, they found Terrence Hill holed up in a remote bungalow outside Tulum. He didn't resist. He didn't even speak. Just smiled as they cuffed him and read the charges. But Marcus? Gone again. No sign. No footprint. Not even a whisper. Back in Atlanta, the grand jury indicted Marcus Langston in absentia, charging him importantly, what would you have done if it were your sister, your daughter, or your friend who said no, and never got the chance to say it again?